From the very first moment, when the air hummed softly and the murmur of the swamp's reeds whispered under the moonlight, something very small, but very important, stirred in the quiet. Until then, only sounds had been noticed: croaks, splashes, wind across lily pads. But something inside the hush stood out, the silence between two musical notes, smallest but most precious. That silence trembled with curiosity and longing, wondering what purpose it held, because without purpose, even silence could feel lost. At that moment, the melody in the swamp cracked, the harmony slipped, and the silence knew something must be done. It mattered that the Symphony of the Swamp was not just any place. It was a place where music lived in every ripple of water, every rustle of leaf, every ribbit and trill. The air smelled of wet earth, moss, and lilies. The moonlight glinted off bubbles beneath the water surface. Sounds danced, long notes held, quick notes tittered. But that one gap, that pause between two notes, felt like it had no voice. That gap felt forgotten, and the melody felt incomplete. The silence between two musical notes decided that it must learn what pauses truly were for, so that harmony could be restored. The educational quest was clear: to understand why pauses make music beautiful, how to use pauses well, and where a pause belongs. All this before the next moon, when the full concert would be held and the melody must be perfect again. The silence shivered with resolve. In the shimmering silver light of late evening, the reeds bowed, the frogs rehearsed their harmonies, the cicadas buzzed in patterned beats. The swamp seemed alive with song, but one melody, a song that lifted over the water, floated through the branches, had a broken spot. Two notes, high and low, meant to be joined by silence, were smashed together by mistake. Instead of breathing space, a harsh crash of sounds. The audience of crickets paused. The fireflies flickered in confusion. Even the wind stilled as though listening. That broken melody weighed on the silence. Alone between two notes, it felt squeezed out, squashed, with no room to shine. That was the inciting incident. Without proper pause, the melody lost its magic. The audience lost the feeling of wonder. The silence between two musical notes knew that unless it learned the true value and proper place for pauses, the grand concert under the moon would sound flat, crowded, and sad. The silence set out on its journey through the Symphony of the Swamp. It was neither loud nor filled with colour, but it carried importance. It would meet guides, other elements of music, and face three challenges that would teach what a pause is, when to use it, how long it lasts, and how to make it powerful. All that before the full concert. At first dawn, as mist curled above dark water and frogs croaked a waking tune, the silence drifted out from between those two troubled notes. It floated over lily pads soft as velvet, through cattails that whispered, through reeds that hummed low. It felt cool moisture on its unseen skin, felt gentle breeze, smelled damp leaf mold and honeyed lilies. The swamp was alive, and the silence felt so small yet hopeful. The first challenge arose at the edge of Ripple. There the silence encountered the ripple, a shimmering sound that rose and fell like waves. The ripple was continuous, so full of movement that nothing could rest. The silence tried to insert itself between two waves of sound, but found itself pushed, overlapped, swallowed. The melody in the ripple rushed without pause, rushing without breath. The silence observed carefully. It noticed that when Ripple paused, even ever so slightly, just a moment of still water before the wave falls back, it made the next sound more shining, more clear. The listener heart would catch that space, the echo would hang, the next wave would feel more alive. The guide of Ripple taught that a pause there should be short, precise, just enough for breath, just enough for attention. The silence practiced. First, a tiny pause, then a slightly longer one, then a little more. It felt the difference. Short pause, alert heart. Longer pause, anticipation. Too long, awkward, empty. The silence measured the pause between two notes in this watery, wave-like song. In each attempt, the ripple responded. The waves sounded more beautiful when the silence held firm between them. After many tries, the silence mastered the pause at the edge of ripple. It had learned when a pause belonged there, right after a high crest before the descent. It had learned how long a pause should be, just enough that the next ripples seemed to rise from the hush. It had learned that the value of a pause is in making what comes next shine. Leaving ripple behind, the silence floated deeper into the marsh, into thick grasses and bulrushes, to the second challenge, the chorus of croaks. A choir of frogs called out in rhythm, long note, short note, short note, long note. The chorus was bold, loud, overlapping. There was no space. Every frog began its note before the last had ended. The sound was joyful but jumbled. The melody suffered. The silence listened. It sensed what was missing, breathing space between the voices. It felt how the chorus could sound grander if each croak had space to settle before the next. The silence tried slipping between croaks. After a long croak, a pause. After 2 short croaks, a pause. It practiced letting sounds settle, letting echo fade. Sometimes the frogs made mistakes, rushing over the pause. Sometimes the silence hesitated. But with practice, the chorus became clearer, each frog's voice distinct, the melody more harmonious. Here, the silence learned repetition. Pause after long note, pause after 2 short, pause to let echoes settle. The pattern became predictable. The melody broke open. The swamp audience of fireflies, cattails, reeds heard beauty with breathing space. The silence felt proud. On the path between chorus of croaks and the darkest swamp pool, uncertainty loomed. The swamp air thickened, moss hung heavy, smells turned deep earth and wet stone. The third challenge awaited. The bass drums thunder under the willows. The ground vibrated with deep low booms from unseen drums, every beat heavy, insistent. The drumbeat pattern was unrelenting. Boom, not boom, boom, not boom, boom, not boom. But the not booms were plenty small gaps, almost unseen, and the silence needed to show its strength in those gaps. Those gaps, those pauses, could be the very soul of the rhythm. The silence trembled, feeling pressure. Under those giant willows, with roots that dripped water, the bass drumbeat threatened to drown everything else. Without the silence, the beats merged, sounding like one continuous roar. Without breathing pause, there was no rhythm, no pattern. The silence braced against wind, water, vibrations. It practiced inserting itself. After each strong boom, a full pause. Between beats, a small rest. It counted 1, pause, 2, pause, 1, pause, 2, pause. It listened for the heartbeat of the swamp rhythm, recognizing that the space between beats, the pause, is as important as the beat itself. In that third challenge, the silence discovered depth, that pauses are not emptiness but power, that in the hush between booms, one ache, one echo, one anticipation lives. The silence felt music itself breathe. As dusk fell with fireflies rising, the silence drifted back, carrying knowledge. When to pause, how long, how powerful, how silence between notes, between waves, between croaks, between booms made beauty. But what the silence did not yet know was how to bring that back to the broken melody between 2 notes that had started this journey. The night of the full moon arrived. The symphony of the swamp gathered under silver light. Lily pads floated, reeds stood tall, frogs prepared voices, drums readied their rumble, wind waited. The melody that had cracked was about to be performed. 2 musical notes, one high, one low, needed a pause between them, a perfect silence to let the second note sing. The performance began. First the ripple, then the chorus of croaks, then the bass, drums, thunder. The audience vibrated, breath held. Then came the broken melody. High note then, no pause. The 2 notes crashed again. The silence felt the crack in its heart. The swamp audience gasped, water still, wind hushed. Something needed to change. Gathering courage, the silence stepped between those 2 notes. It inserted the perfect pause it had learned. After the high note, a still hush drifting into moonlight, then the low note. That precise space, just long enough for breath, just long enough for anticipation, made the low note bloom. The second note emerged pure and resonant. The entire swamp exhaled. Ripples quivered, reeds bowed, frogs stared, wind sighed. The melody was restored. The broken crack vanished. Without that pause, the melody would have stayed flat, crowded, overwhelming. With the silence, beauty flourished. The audience felt emotion, calm, joy, wonder. The value of the pause had saved the music. The silence stood proud, not loud, not glittering, but essential. The pause belonged there, between the two notes, holding space for magic. The full performance unfolded, high notes, rests, long resonant low notes, moments of hush. The swamp sang as one, rhythm and rest entwined. The listener heart danced. In that moment, the silence understood, silence is not nothing. Silence is part of music. It is what lets sound matter. It is what gives shape, depth, meaning. The concert ended under the moon. Gentle applause of reeds, hush of water, breath of wind. The melody glowed. The silence had fulfilled its quest. To understand why pauses make music beautiful, how to use them well, where they belong, and to bring that knowledge back to heal the broken melody. Along the way, many questions had been asked, but never out loud by characters, only by the narrator to the listener. Did the listener notice how the ripples sounded more beautiful when there was a small pause after the crest? Can the listener feel the difference between a short pause and a longer one, especially in the chorus of croaks? Which pause between the bass drum beats felt strongest, after one boom or after two? These moments invited the listener to count pauses, to feel the hush, to imagine the space between sounds. And as moonlight faded and dawn's first glow touched the swamp, the audience drifted home carrying music in their hearts. The silence between two musical notes knew that its place was never empty but always essential. Next time, a new sound lesson will await, perhaps about rhythm and pattern, or maybe about the colors of sound. What shall we learn in the next adventure? Will we learn how rhythm works, or discover what colors sounds might be? Join next time to find out. Moral core. Silence is a part of music. It is not absence, but essential to making sound matter.